Hello brains, I'm back from VidCon 2019 and I'm very exhausted, but we got lots of cool footage. We're putting together a really special video for you guys next week with lots of cool YouTubers. But in the meantime, I just wanted to talk to you about how VidCon's first neurodiversity panel went. Last year I told Hank Green I wanted a neurodiversity panel at VidCon and he said yes, as long as I would find the creators to be on it, which I did. And it was so cool to talk about this stuff with other YouTubers live with zero shame.
Did you guys know you don't have to be good at everything to be succausual?
I don't really like bright light for autistic reasons.
When people think of conditions like ADHD or autism, they'll instantly think the negative. How does that impact your life in a bad way? They never go, this person's autistic, awesome, what they're good at.
It's one thing that I often sort of struggle with is just the idea of what about me is my autism versus what's my personality and what's who I am.
It's I have this weird birthmark and also ADHD.
I've sort of actively tried not to keep it to myself because I feel like that's kind of something you do with things you're embarrassed about or you're ashamed of.
I actually have this full-on cable package of I have, inattentiveness here and I have whatever.
The way my brain works, I love it. And I see everything as an algorithm now. So I was in the kitchen trying to make something. How do I optimize this sandwich? I'm like, what am I doing? And this is how my brain works.
I felt like it was one of those meetings where hi, my name is Katie and I'm not creative. But it was really cool.
Hi, Katie.
I'll post the whole panel over on Patreon. But for now, I just wanted to share a few takeaways I really loved. First, why it's important that we talk about this stuff.
Just from sharing my experiences with friends, I had a friend find out, go and get diagnosed himself, and he found that really transformative in his life because there's all these things that feel like hidden forces, this undefined gravity that's affecting us and our emotions, right?
That's a good way of putting it.
If you're always low to the ground because you're it's so hard to move around and you're experiencing 2 times the Earth's gravity,
and everybody else is what's wrong with you? Just walking around.
There's a basketball player that's why is he jumping so high? It's I actually I experience the gravity of the moon, so I can just do whatever I want. People's experiences are different, and you can start to define that. It's oh, you walk around with moon gravity, and it's is that why?
I love the metaphor of different kinds of gravity because I feel like when we don't know why we're having trouble, it's really easy for us to blame ourselves and feel bad about it. But when we understand that there's a reason for it, that shame goes away and we can focus on how to deal with our brain's challenges and even take advantage of its strengths.
One of the things that autism tends to cause is habit building, very, very strong habit building. And so I get to the point where I release a video on Friday because I release a video on Friday. That's what happens. And so if there's not a video on Friday, that it becomes more stressful to not do the work than to do the work, which is probably maybe not the healthiest long term, but it works and it gets the videos out there and it just becomes a routine and it becomes very comfortable. And so I don't really have to focus and work really hard to be how do I get myself to do this work this week? Is because it's gonna get done. I know it's gonna get done.
That's not how my brain works, but that's kind of the point of neurodiversity, recognizing that our brains don't all work the same way.
Traditional society says we're supposed to get up at 7, get to work at 8 and be done at 5, and that's how we're supposed to operate. But most people don't work that way. We all have different levels of productivity. And everybody's productivity hits a peak at a certain time. If you're super focused, you're wow, I just cranked out that script. And they were talking about how we can work to do that more. So I'm not a morning person. Never will be, cannot, do not. But around 2, 3 p.m., I can do so much stuff. And so that's when I sit down at my desk and I do things. And so I think it's just paying attention to how you operate. And instead of trying to push ourselves into the way that we're supposed to, we think we're supposed to work, working to our strengths. So I'm not a morning person. I won't have meetings first thing in the morning. I'm going to put my meetings after lunch because I do better. And there's simple things I think that we could implement if we pay attention to what works for us that can make us feel better day after day as we're no, I nailed that. I did good. I got that script out. I finished that video because I worked in my time frame. And I know that's kind of more than what we're talking about, but I feel it's kind of important for us to work with ourselves instead of against ourselves. We don't all have to work in the same format. That's just not feasible. We're all different.
For me, the neurodiversity movement is about embracing and accepting that our brains work differently. And for those of us with neurodivergent brains, it's not about denying that we have challenges, because we do. It's about normalizing the fact that we have those challenges, that it's not a choice, it's how our brains work, and finding ways to accommodate them that don't create shame. Daniel has some great advice for how to do this for someone you love.
Especially with like an autism condition, when you tell somebody that, they try to overcompensate. Like, let's go outside. This isn't like too bright for you. Let's do this. It's like, I'm gonna just calm down. They can make too much of a fuss. So making too much of a fuss makes it worse and makes me panic loads. I think the best thing is to just be cool with it. Like so like when I say to people like awesome, okay, you let me know when you need something, that's the best hack ever. Because then I'm like, oh, I just go outside and get some air. Like, okay, cool, let's do it. And so that's the biggest thing I've found that's super helpful, because you're dealing with people who don't understand your individual need, right? So they're only ever going to know if you tell them.
Again, this was our first year doing a neurodiversity panel. I'm hoping to get to do it again next year. Let me know in the comments below which creators you'd like to see me include next year. Thank you to my brain advocates and all my Patreon brains. Again, head over to Patreon to check out the full panel. Like, subscribe, click all the things. Make sure you have the bell on, because next week's video is going to be really cool. There's lots and lots of YouTubers in it. Can you tell I'm excited? I'm excited. See you next week. Bye, brains.